This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. Welcome to Come for Tea. My first experience with afternoon tea came when an acquaintance invited me to join her for tea at the Stanford Court Hotel in San Francisco. We sat at white linen-covered tables with beautiful English teapots. A gentleman came and poured our tea for us, but first put a beautiful silver strainer in our cup to catch the leaves that had been steeping in the pot. Then came the three-tiered tray with all sorts of delicious-looking sandwiches and sweets. I thought I must have died and gone to heaven. From that moment on, I've been hooked on afternoon tea. Since that afternoon in San Francisco, I've had lots of friends and families over for afternoon tea. I love doing it so much, but I had to find a way that made it easy for me so I wasn't exhausted by the time my friend came for tea. So I hope after you watch this episode, you'll feel inspired to maybe try having an afternoon tea yourself. So let's put together an afternoon tea. Start with a pretty tablecloth and a couple of salad or dessert plates. Then you're going to want to choose some teacups. Many times I like to put a little flower in from the garden. I think that really looks nice. And then instead of putting the teaspoon right at the place setting, I like to put a pretty little teaspoon right on the saucer of the teacup. I think that looks kind of nice. Choose a couple of napkins. They can be paper or cloth. And then you're going to want some kind of spreading knife. Butter knives are nice, or even tall dinner knives are fine. Set your creamer in sugar. Sometimes it's fun to put in sugar cubes for afternoon tea, but you can have regular sugar if you'd like as well. And then I like to put just a little vase of flowers, nothing big or fancy, right at the table. And then if you're serving a loose leaf tea, you might want to put some strainers down at the place setting. That's always a nice way to catch the leaves, and then it keeps things nice and fresh in your cup. Now that the table is set, let's talk about the tea tray. I've been to some teas where people just have tons of sweets and very few savory things. So to make sure you have a nice balance, I've come up with a little formula that I like to use. I always try to have a savory thing, a scone, a sweet thing, some fruit, and a chocolate on my tea tray. As you can see, this is much more substantial than a simple tea, but if you plan it right, it doesn't take a lot more time to put together. So for this tea tray, I'm just using a glass platter, and then I'm going to use a grease-proof doily on top. Then it's time to get our savories out. For today's tea, I decided to make some cucumber sandwiches and some tomato sandwiches. Whenever I'm putting a tea tray together, I always keep in mind how many people will be nibbling off of this tray, because I want to make sure that I have the exact amount for each person. The first thing people do is when they look at something, they think, oh, I don't want to take more than my share. So for this tea for two, I'm going to have 4 squares of tomato sandwiches and 4 triangles of cucumber sandwiches. So I've got a couple of savory things, and now I'm going to add the scones to my tea tray. Now, whenever you're serving a scone at tea, it's traditional to have something along with it to spread on it. Because I've chosen this traditional cream scone, I'm going to be serving some clotted cream and also some strawberry jam. When I'm trying to decide the thing to serve with my scone, I always think, well, what would really go well with this scone? If I had chosen a cinnamon scone today, I probably would have just had a little dish with some whipped butter in it. So you decide what would taste best with the scones that you've made. So now it's time to add our sweets to our tea tray. There's lots of ways to go: cookies, tarts. What I chose today is I had these little store-bought tart shells that I filled with some lemon curd, and then I just added a couple of pirouette cookies. Now it's time to add our fruit. Today I've gone ahead and chosen some grapes, but I could have chosen some mandarin orange slices or even some strawberries. I always just look for what's in season. For my chocolate today, I've just chosen a couple of truffles, but there are wonderful things that you can add. If you wanted to dip your strawberries in chocolate, that would be nice. Or you could even put a couple of pieces of fudge. It doesn't need to be much, but it really does add a nice little touch. Now I'm going to garnish the whole tray with just a pretty camellia flower that was out in my garden. You can choose roses, anything that hasn't been sprayed, of course, but it just makes the whole tray look beautiful. So here's our beautiful tea tray. And look, we have our savory thing, our scone, our sweet, our fruit, and our chocolate. And then along with our scone, we have some clotted cream and some strawberry jam. Just bring your little teapot over and you are so ready to enjoy an afternoon tea with a friend. Now, as a variation from having your tea tray on a platter, I'm going to show you how to use one of these 3-tiered tea trays. Now, this one happens to fold out, but it could also be one that stacks on top of each other. I just use, again, the grease-proof doilies. These are a smaller size, but that way you don't have to add extra weight to your tea tray by adding plates. Then what I do is I use that top tray for my savories. And what I do is I just try to make a nice pattern of them along that top tray. And then I'm just going to garnish the top of it with a pretty little flower from the garden. Then on the next tray, I'm going to put my scones. And on the third tray, then I'm going to put my sweets and my fruit and my chocolate. I hope that you'll give afternoon tea a try. The next time you're at the grocery store, look for things that you can add to your tea tray. Make it easy for yourself, and then that way it'll be a relaxing time for both you and your friend. Enjoy! For more information on this episode, go to our website and visit the Come For Tea show notes. Also, if you have any questions or ideas, send us an email. Thanks for watching. It's time for tea.